What's up, guys? Welcome back to Newswave. So just when we thought Nintendo was all done with updates for Nintendo Switch Online expansion pack, they come out of nowhere last week and just announced more games heading to the service with a surprising release date. We'll talk about that one here today. Also, we are going to be talking about that chip shortage that has caused a massive issue when it comes to supplies for the PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series. And it's gotten so bad that Microsoft themselves are having a hard time sourcing these consoles to run tournaments. And we're also going to be talking about an update that's gotten out there now for Nintendo and Breath of the Wild 2 in 2022. Guys, if you enjoy these videos, make sure that like button helps out a ton. And if you're new here to the Spawn Wave channel, make sure you subscribe down below and ring that notification bell so you can keep up to date with all of the uploads here on the channel. And we're going to start today with Metroid Dread. Now that we're at the end of 2021, a lot of outlets are looking back on the year and giving out their annual Game of the Year awards. For example, IGN gave Forza Horizon 5 the award. Of course, we saw It Takes Two win at the Game Awards, and it looks like Metroid Dread did take home an award from Time. Yeah, I was a little surprised on this one too, but they actually have their top 10 games published here. And we can see at the top, Metroid Dread was number 1. Number 2 was Inscription. Forza Horizon 5 was 3. And then from there we have Chicory, Hitman 3, Returnal, Halo Infinite, Deathloop, Sable, and It Takes Two. I'm pretty happy to see Metroid Dread at least win the Game of the Year award from somewhere. So sure, why not? Time coming through for that one. But the reason I'm happy about this is I would like to see other larger developers and publishers take a shot at a high-quality 2D game like Metroid Dread. I've talked about things like Castlevania, I think that'd be great, or even like a Mega Man or Mega Man X, I know, but the idea that 2D games could make a bit more of a comeback after what we saw with Ori and now Metroid Dread, we of course know Hollow Knight, that's something I'd like to see more of, because while it's great to get those big 3D open world impressive looking games, sometimes it's fun to sit down and just have that really high quality 2D experience as well. Also, we of course know that a new Mass Effect is in development now, and it looks like we found out what engine it's being built on, and Mass Effect veterans, you're about to breathe a sigh of relief here. We can head over to Twitter. This from Brennan, who's the producer at BioWare working on the next Mass Effect game. Says BioWare is hiring talented programmers with Unreal Engine 4 and Unreal Engine 5 experience. Come join our team and work with us on the next Mass Effect game. So this is great news because it looks like Mass Effect is being built on Unreal Engine 4, maybe 5. That's what I would go with if it's not going to be out for several years. Might as well move up to Unreal Engine 5. We just saw what's possible with that Matrix demo, so that would be something to see there. But obviously the good news is they're not going to try to use Frostbite. It appears like they did their best to force that on the team there to have Mass Effect Andromeda happen. And we saw what happened there. It wasn't good. So them going back to Unreal Engine, which is what they used previously with some of the original Mass Effect games, is great news. I feel like at this point, they at least have an idea of the route to take with this engine, and of course, what Mass Effect fans are looking forward to after having that trilogy come out, the really good remasters that they did for those original games. I am excited to see what's next in the Mass Effect series, especially if they're building on Unreal Engine 5. Oh, and over the weekend, I did a video on the Analogue Pocket, which is a phenomenal retro game handheld system, and to play your Game Boy, Game Boy Color, Game Boy Advance, even Game Gear games with plans to support a bunch of other systems like the Atari Lynx and the Neo Geo Pocket Color. Well, as usual, it looks like resellers are taking advantage of the shortage we're seeing across all these different systems, and that does include the Analogue Pocket. You can see over on eBay, the device is going for more than 2.5 times its value in most cases, touching upwards of $500, $600, even $700. I've seen some packaged in with things like the dock and the Game Gear adapter get over $1,000. And while I think the device is great, I think the best Game Boy certainly you can buy right now. Like I said, check out my video that I did from the weekend, full teardown and all that. It's not something I would buy for that kind of price. And unfortunately, it looks like Analogue's gonna be dealing with this shortage at least throughout all of 2022 based on the ordering that they're doing right now. So here's hoping at some point you can just go online and buy one of these Analogue Pockets and not for $500 or $600. More like, the actual retail price of $220. And guys, with some of the quick news out of the way, let's get into the bigger stuff. Let's start right away with Nintendo Switch Online Plus expansion pack. We had Paper Mario go to the service, and then we found out, oh, Banjo-Kazooie is coming next month, but that was kind of it at the time. We didn't have any announcement of Nintendo, Super Nintendo, or Sega Genesis, which was weird because Nintendo has a lot of systems they can choose from, and instead they just did one Nintendo 64 game. It appeared like we were just going to head into the holidays, and then maybe next year, starting in January, they might make some announcements for other systems. Well, not the case. Last week, they just showed up on Twitter with this tweet where they say 5 additional Sega Genesis games are now available for Nintendo Switch Online Plus expansion pack members. Which will you play first? We have Altered Beast, Toe Jam and Earl, Dynamite Headdy, Sword of Vermilion, and Thunder Force 2. Looking at this list, I believe 4 of these are in that Sega Classics collection, with Thunder Force 2, I believe, the only one that's not there. So you may have already played these or even owned these games already, but if you don't have that, these are being thrown in there. Certainly check out Altered Beast. I think that's an awesome game to play, and Toe Jam and Earl is a lot of fun. I mean, the good thing here is they're just part of your subscription service, so you can just jump in and out, and try them yourselves. The thing that was surprising about this is it wasn't a build-up like, oh, they'll be out next week. They just released them. So it was like, oh yeah, there's 5 Genesis games. Go check your application. It's there now. And I started thinking about that and I said, I prefer that actually. Like, do we always need an announcement a week, 2 weeks in advance that they're going to add a game to the service? Even a month in advance with something like Banjo-Kazooie? Not necessarily. Like, if they do have these surprise drops, just announce it. A lot of us, if we are looking forward to these things, are already bought in at this point, and we just go to our application and we get to check it out right then and there. It's that excitement of a shadow drop for a service that you're already part of then, which again continues to create excitement around a service that has struggled to have that, especially recently. That said, while I do like the idea of just kind of shadow dropping right then and there these different games, I feel like we do have to at least get into a groove when it comes to a schedule like we have with Xbox Live Games with Gold and PlayStation Plus releases every single month. Even if Nintendo said, hey, look, the first week of every month, you can expect at least some sort of update to this service. Doesn't mean you're getting a 64 game every month or a Genesis or Super Nintendo, but you will have some sort of update to look forward to. They're now at least to the point where they have so many systems, they can pretty much just start grabbing different games from each one, and maybe one month is a Super Nintendo and a Genesis month. Maybe one month is a Nintendo and an N64 month. Maybe one month is just 3 N64 games and like, that's it. But that is something I would like to see Nintendo start to figure out next year in 2022 as a continuing schedule, something we can look forward to, not necessarily exactly what we're gonna get, but like this, basically this window of time every month to where we can start looking around and figuring out, okay, what can we expect here for Nintendo Switch Online? Not, are we going to be getting anything this month for Nintendo Switch Online? But let me know what you thought about this update with the Genesis games. The games, yes, but also the idea of them just announcing it and hey, it's out. Next up, let's talk about the console shortage that pretty much everyone is facing right now. Even Nintendo. Seems to be kind of difficult to get one of those Switch OLEDs currently. Forget about the PS5 or the Xbox Series X. You're not seeing them in stores at all. I have seen the Series S more and more recently, but a lot of people, of course, are looking for generally the PS5 and the Xbox Series X at this time. However, it does appear that even Microsoft is having a hard time getting their hands on these consoles, and they make them. Like, take a look at this tweet here. This is from Tashi over at 343 and Microsoft saying, heads up open bracket players, you'll be playing this weekend on Series X development consoles. They're functionally identical and will be operating in retail mode, so it's the exact same experience. They just look a little different. Why? Global supply chain shortage is real. I mean, this is incredible stuff now. If Microsoft can't even source it, what chance do most of us have to find one of these systems at retail price? I mean, I still see it now. When they go up online, it's either a bundle for nearly $1,000 on websites like GameStop or Target or Walmart, or it's just up on eBay for now over $1,000 just for the console. The prices have continued to go up on second-hand seller sites, which is a shame because for a while there, they were coming down. The PS5 got down to like $700 at one point, to where it was almost not even worth reselling for these different scalpers. Now it's back to business as usual for them, where they are continuing to pick up all of these different systems as soon as they go up online. The thing crashes, it's still a problem just figuring this out, and there seems to be no plans of these systems making their way into stores consistently. I mean, we've seen the sales charts in Japan. Good luck if you're out there trying to find a PlayStation 5 when Sony's unable to even ship 2,000 units out there. We've also had more and more reports come out that this is a shortage that could be going into 2023. Seriously, Intel has talked about it before when it comes to the factory level with just getting these chips out there for other computers and even their video cards that it sounds like they're trying to create. We've heard Nvidia's been struggling. It's a whole thing across the board right now. So I think we're going to be dealing with this for potentially another 2 years. It seems weird because then this could be one of the slowest starting generations we've seen, which tells me it's also going to end up probably being the longest generation we've had. Why would you cut this generation short if you had such a hard time selling 30, 40 million systems if you're Sony in the first 3 or 4 years? They typically like to get that 100 million unit mark, which means they're going to have to seriously backload a lot of these at the end of this generation. So we'll see how the rest of throughout 2022 into 2023 shapes out. I'm hoping the chip shortage starts to get resolved so we can get these systems on the store shelves so people can actually pick up these systems for, again, retail price rather than double or even triple what we're seeing online. Next up, let's talk about the Final Fantasy VII PC situation that is currently ongoing. We had talked previously about the price increase around this game on PC up to $70, mirroring what Square has done on the PlayStation 5 with Final Fantasy VII Intergrade and Forspoken. So we figured, okay, well, if it's going to be $70, the $10 jump from what is typically charged on PC, and it's on the Epic Game Store, it must be good. Like, the port can't be bad, right? Well, turns out that's not the case. We can see this over on Twitter. This was tweeted out from Alexander Battaglia is over at Digital Foundry. It says, as I mentioned, I'm not covering Final Fantasy VII Remake yet. The stutters that happen as you immediately get in the game, rendered graphics are just unacceptable. Anyone testing and playing this game on PC before release should surely realize that your cinematic game should not do that. And then John Linneman went ahead and said, Alex sent his clips over for us to check out, and yeah, the PC port of Final Fantasy VII Remake is terrible. He captured this using an RTX 3090 and 10900K at just 1080p, and it's a mess. The smooth presentation was central to its storytelling, and this version compromises it. Kind of reminds me of what happened with Nier Automata, actually, where that had very limited options and the port itself was a disaster where the community had to mostly fix it. Eventually they came back, it seemed, and put a patch out that solved a lot of the problems, but that was years later. The thing with this, though, is Square pushed forward for that $70 price like they had a quality port ready to go. It's like, hey, it's $70, but you're gonna be blown away by how good this is. I've seen people online say, wow, the options are very limited when you get into the PC side of things. You're expecting to go into menus of different options to customize your experience. That's one of the biggest the biggest draws of PC, is that you can do that. Not really the case here at all. Like, there's a lot of work that would still go into this port, and that's if it's actually going to happen. As what we saw with Nier, it took them a long time to patch it. But while the game appears to be stuck on Epic Games Store right now, it does look like it will be heading to Steam. This is most likely a timed exclusive. We can see this tweet. This is from Just saying, I can confirm that Final Fantasy VII Remake is planned to release on Steam after Epic Games' exclusive contract, and the game app ID used for dev test is 1462040. The app have been created on October 2026, months after release on PS4. And the thing with that is, a lot of times the community on Steam will release all these different patches to fix games, so maybe when it moves over to Steam, people start really looking into it and can work to fix it. Also, you would have a user score, which does not exist on the Epic Games Store, and that tells me that it's going to be mostly negative. Like, it's going to get crushed pretty bad there, because if you go to the Epic Games Store, it looks good. Like, it has the open critic score down there. It really doesn't mention much of anything about the poor performance, to the point where people have to take to Twitter to let other people know, hey, this is not a good version of the game on PC. One of the biggest drawbacks for Epic Games Store is you can't really communicate that the port is bad on the store itself. So I would expect, unless they have it worked out when it goes to Steam, for there to be a lot of conversation around this port on that platform. And in our last bit of news, let's talk about Nintendo in 2022, specifically though around Breath of the Wild 2, because there was a quote going around that had people a bit more confident in Breath of the Wild 2 actually making that 2022 release year, and it does come from IGN. We can see this quotation. This is from Pierre Schneider, who's the IGN Chief Content Officer, where he says, "It does sound like Nintendo is going to have a pretty good year next year, so I would not take the absence of big stuff at the Game Awards as a sign that maybe Breath of the Wild is delayed or that they don't have other stuff, because it sounds like people at Nintendo are very excited about 2022. This was on an IGN podcast, and I feel like Nintendo believes they're going to get Breath of the Wild 2 out in 2022. I feel like they are going to do their best because they've already told us the year. Like, if they weren't at least somewhat confident that it's coming out next year, they would not have shown any kind of release year, because that does at least set it up for a window that it can be delayed out of. But on the same hand, Nintendo has no problem delaying a game if it needs to be delayed. I mean, we saw Animal Crossing, that got delayed, and their reasoning was they didn't want their employees and developers to crunch to meet just a window or a release date they had set up, and hey, we'll push it out a couple of months if that makes it easier on our developers and probably polish the game further. Breath of the Wild 2 is a big deal all the way around. After what we saw with Breath of the Wild, this game, in Nintendo's mind, has to come out as a quality product. So while I'm hopeful for 2022, I believe Nintendo wants it to be 2022, there's still a chance that it ends up in 2023, potentially March, maybe just having it come full circle towards the end of the Switch's lifespan. That I feel like when we get into 2023, we're gonna start hearing rumblings and talks, even from Nintendo, about what's next for the Switch line of devices, whether that's next gen or revision or something to extend this generation. But yeah, having Breath of the Wild 2 there, potentially to kick off like the first half of 2023 would be massive, but it'd also be really massive to have it in 2022 holidays. So we'll see how this goes, but I do believe Pear's right about one thing. Nintendo is going to have a lot of stuff for 2022. It's going to be a packed year, even if Breath of the Wild 2 is not there, because we have an idea of some stuff they're going to release, but something tells me they're going to have quite a few announcements that we haven't heard about just yet. And before we go to the comment of the day, we're taking a little poll that I posted up yesterday, where I asked, have you waited for a console-exclusive game to come to PC? 31% said yes, I've waited for a game to come to PC. 25% said no, I buy the game on the console and don't wait, and then 44% said I don't play games on PC. I do believe that if the right game comes along, no matter what platform it releases, you're probably going to get the console so you can play the game. If it's one of those games that you've really been looking forward to and you find out, oh, it's exclusive to a certain platform. Now, there are so many games out there, technically you can wait, but my concern is if I wait that long, potentially years, for like Final Fantasy VII Remake, and it comes out on the PC and the state of the port is to what it is now, where it's not good, that is extremely disappointing. So we're to the point, by the way, where Evan even picked up a PlayStation 4 controller to play Final Fantasy VII Remake. So while I get people might want to wait years to get some of these games on PC, you also have to be mindful, sometimes the port doesn't exactly work out. And we'll finish up with the comment of the day as you're seeing here. This is from Plaz saying, the issue with Final Fantasy XIV right now isn't the queues, it's the constant errors which boot you from the queues after sitting for 2 to 3 plus hours. And the ones that boot you from the game after finally getting in. You have to babysit your PS4 or PC or laptop so you can immediately log back in and hope it saved your place, which it only does maybe 1 out of 5 times. You can't go do other things because you'll most certainly get aired out of the queue. That's the issue. The queues themselves are something we can deal with. The errors are not. Yeah, that's tough. If you wait for 2 hours in queue and you're about to get in and there's an error and it kicks you out and you end up in the back of the line, or the fact that you just had to babysit a screen that slowly ticks down. During the podcast, a Dreamcast guy mentioned that some people just don't really want to log out because they're concerned about being in the back of the queue again, so they AFK just right to where they're still kind of moving, and it's a whole thing with this. It's one of those rare situations where they're suffering from too much success. The game's gotten too popular for them to handle, with servers being a rarity right now. Again, with that chip shortage. So I hope as we go into next year, Square can source more servers and try to work out a game that has just become too popular to handle. And ladies and gentlemen, that's gonna do it here for Newswave. If you enjoyed this video, guys, hit that like button, really helps out. If not, hit the dislike, leave comments down below. But everything we talked about here today was Nintendo adding more games to the Switch Online service last week through a shadow drop. Do you prefer that, or do you like when they announce things like a week in advance? Also, what about the current supply issues around the PS5 and the Xbox Series X? How's that going for your holiday shopping? And then Breath of the Wild 2, does it actually come out in 2022? Thanks guys for watching, and I'll see you next time.